Climate change. It is something caused by forces outside the control of ordinary people. Now it seems the solution is of the same order. It depends on the behavior of the most powerful politicians and business people in the world, over whom you and I have very little control. The Food Sovereignty Campaign is a movement of impoverished small-scale farmers and farm dwellers that went to COP17 to challenge this perception. They believe ordinary people, working and poor people like themselves, have a crucial role to play in responding to climate change. By occupying land and practicing agroecological farming, the rural poor, for example, can bring an end to the massive contribution that corporate agriculture is making to climate change through its intensive use of oil, coal, and chemicals made from these fossil fuels. But what is COP17 and climate change? The full official name of COP17 is the 17th Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It is the 70th meeting of all the governments that agreed to the framework that the United Nations developed to guide responses to climate change. Climate change is indeed something that demands an urgent global response because it threatens the future of the entire planet and all its creatures. In the industrialized nations, industry, agriculture and transport functions through burning oil and oil products for energy. This releases gases into the atmosphere that makes the temperature rise, causing droughts in some cases, floods in others. It has reached a point where it threatens the future of humanity through its potential catastrophic impact on food production. By this time, it will be too late to reverse it. The time to act is now. This film shows the efforts of the Food Sovereignty Campaign to get this message across at COP17 in Durban, South Africa.
So ons is nou by Community House en ons het almal hier afgevaardigdes wat na die COP17 in Durban toe gaan. Die delegation is hoofsaaklik lede van die voedselsoevereiniteitsveldtog. So as hulle lede, so ons as SPP ondersteun die voedselsoevereiniteitsveldtog. So hulle het klomp aktiwiteite wat hulle gaan deelneem in Durban. Dit is belangrik om die mense na COP17 toe te vat, sodat hulle stemme gehoor word. Want anders eindig jy hoofsaaklik soos sommige mense dink dat NGO's, hulle is civil society, maar as die mense op die grond, die klein boere met wie ons werk, die grondlose mense, is belangrik dat hulle eie stemme hoor en dat hulle sê die dinge wat vir hulle pla in terme van klimaatsverandering.
What happened in Copenhagen happened again in Cancun, and it's going to happen again in Durban. The United States is saying that they are going to reduce only 3% of their greenhouse gas emissions from the year 1990. So that is almost to do nothing. And Canada has said that they are going to do the same as the US. And in my country, I come from a country with big mountains and glaciers. We have lost 1/3 of the glaciers of our mountains, with less than 1 degree Celsius increase in the temperature. So you can imagine what will happen if the temperature increases to 4-6 degrees Celsius. We won't have no more snow in our mountains. And if there is no snow, there is no water. Last year, in 2010, 350,000 persons died because of natural disasters that have to do with climate change. And as delegate, as government of social movements, we cannot support, we cannot remain silent when these kind of agreements are approved in this kind of conference.
The Food Sovereignty Campaign is a movement of small-scale farmers, farm workers and dwellers, landless people, unemployed youth, women and urban and rural poor people from the Northern and Western Cape that fights for agrarian transformation and food sovereignty. For the Food Sovereignty Campaign, agrarian transformation means the land must be taken from the current owners and become the property of the people as a whole, under the control of those who work it. This means redirecting the agrarian system in favor of the development of a productive small-scale agriculture, in contrast to having agriculture largely subjected to international market forces. Linked to this is the idea of food sovereignty, which imply the right of people to define their own food, agricultural, livestock and fishing systems. This includes the right of people to healthy and culturally appropriate food that is produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods. After 4 years of putting pressure on the state through marches, memoranda, pickets, office occupation and legal action, the Food Sovereignty Campaign has decided to focus on land occupation as a tactic, as it has become clear that direct action will bring the best results for the poor and the powerless. The Food Sovereignty Campaign came to COP17 mainly to promote this idea and to take forward its relationship with La Via Campesina.
Ons is nou gereed om te gaan na die Universiteit van KwaZulu-Natal. Daar het die Food Sovereignty Campaign vandag 'n groot wil ek sê 'n groot samespreking aan. En daai samespreking gaan reeds oor hierdie klimaatsveranderinge. Want ons as die Food Sovereignty Campaign besef ook nie dat ons regering is besig om te sit aan die ander kant met ander regerings te sit en onderhandel. En niemand van ons het hulle 'n mandaat gegee om namens ons te onderhandel nie.
Ons is hier van verskillende organisasies, verskillende lande wat ons kom ondersteun het internasionaal. Internasionale liggame soos La Via Campesina om ons stem kom af te druk om te sê ons expectation is dat die regering tot voordeel van die mense moet besluite neem en nie tot voordeel van die land se kapitaliste nie.
The owners of this land, I can't believe it. And I am not letting you off the hook. This is the time for us to be united. We want to fight out this devil, this enemy. We want to stab the enemy hard. I'm not going to speak much. I will send Toto with the Wamanda horn. That is our signal.
We have selected government, but we must fight them. They must also in the struggle. They know what is happening on grassroots. They knew it. But still we must fight them.
Direct action will make everything possible.
Now the government said, no, we don't want a Zimbabwe crisis. What is happening in Zimbabwe? What is happening in Zimbabwe? Tell me. What I don't know. Nothing. There's no crisis.
Yes.
The people of Zimbabwe have taken what belongs to them.
We will mobilize ourselves. We must bring back that Ubuntu initiative. Because that has been dying, that's why we are struggling. We don't want to share anymore.
Since the 1950s, in our lands that belong to Mexico, in Texas, in California, in Arizona, in Nuevo Mexico, in Nevada, our lands were taken. Those were the places where they produced food, where these agricultural corporations that are poisoning your land and your water began in our land with us.
My family has been farm workers for generations in the United States. First, the family was working on its own land in Texas, and then when the United States took the land from Mexico, then we became farm workers. And so we worked, my father and my grandparents have worked the land in the United States all over as migrant farm workers. We are looking to try to build a solidarity movement to improve the lives of farm workers in the United States, which is very hard because the agri-corporations are so powerful in the United States. They not only control our lives, but they control marketing, production, and now they're very much involved in politics and developing policy and law on growing food, on land.
And we are in solidarity with you. And we will continue to join the struggles whenever we can. We are one family, growing food for the world and protecting Mother Earth together. I stand in solidarity, and we stand in solidarity with you, and we will be part of your struggle, and I know that you will be part of our struggle.
South Africa, Mozambique.
We must take the land back. We must follow the example of Zimbabwe. Because if you look what happened now in South Africa, there's a green paper, and that green paper said that land must be in the hands of the state. If we look at distribution of land, it will never gonna work. Because 17 years after democracy, what's happening? We are the emerging farmers, we are still suffering. We are farm on communist land. Less than 2 hectares of land, and we are more than 30 people. Do you think that we must wait for government to give us land? Or are we going to take the example that happened in Zimbabwe? And I think that is the best example. And I salute the people of Zimbabwe.
The land occupation in Zimbabwe, the government, first of all, the government started redistributing land in the early 80s, which was very successful. And it was on the willing buyer, willing seller basis. Until the late 1990s, the white farmers were not willing to sell their land. And the government was not willing to buy, the scope of the government was not to buy the whole farm. They wanted a piece of the land because they had large hectareage. They just wanted to live in with some land and some to resettle the peasant farmers. White farmers didn't want to share the land with us. They didn't want us to be their neighbors. That's why we took it into our own hands and invaded the lands. It was a gruesome, tiresome, depressing situation, but we won.
Today has been a very interesting day for us because to hear the experience of a movement that struggles for land reform and that uses land occupation as a strategy here in Africa is really important to us because MST was born from land occupation. So now we are a national movement. We have around 1 million families who are organized around the movement all over Brazil. Well, I think what we believe as MST is that any victory a landless worker, a landless peasant or a small farmer can get here in South Africa is our victory as well. Any victory an indigenous people can get in Mexico is also our victory. So what I can tell them is keep fighting, keep the fight, keep struggling, don't give up.
La Via Campesina means the way of the peasant or small farmer. It is a global movement that was started in 1993 to oppose the attacks on small-scale farmers by huge agribusinesses and the states that support them. The movement has affiliates in more than 150 countries. It promotes agroecology, by which it means small-scale family farming that do not use damaging chemicals and protects the environment through mixing and rotating crops and other measures. Agroecology stands in direct opposition to corporate agriculture that concentrates land ownership among the rich, covers huge areas with single crops, and damages and risks the environment with chemicals and genetically modified organisms.
I'm the director of the Indigenous Environmental Network. We're a grassroots indigenous organization that's working on the rights of indigenous people and environmental and economic justice. We've been participating in these conference of the parties, UN meetings, bringing our indigenous voice to apply a human rights approach to these negotiations, and building coalitions and solidifying our movement with popular movements throughout the world, and challenging a lot of the root causes of climate change, which is capitalism.